I will show you how you can use Service Virtualization to create a virtual service from request and response pairs. Using request and response pairs is a useful method to create virtual services to support your testing needs, such as when the live system is unavailable. If you have the details for the expected request and response traffic, you can use those details to create a virtual service that will then stand in for your unavailable system. You can create your virtual service using either the Service Virtualization portal or workstation. I'm going to demonstrate how to do this in Portal, but the process is similar in Service Virtualization Workstation. If you need further information on either process, you can find it in the Service Virtualization documentation, which you can access by clicking the Help icon in the upper right of the screen. To get started in Portal, first select the current project that you want to work in. In this instance, the project that I'm working with is called Demo. Select Virtual Services in the left panel, and then Create Virtual Services. From the Create Virtual Services page, select RR Pairs as the method. Select the appropriate VSE server from the VSE server dropdown. In this case, I only have the one, so I'll select that. Next, enter a name for the virtual service that you want to create, with a brief description. I'm using the HTTP protocol, so I'll accept that default selection. Now I can either drag and drop my request and response files or a zip file containing all of my request and response pairs. I can also click the Browse button to locate them on my local file system. Once I have my files selected, I'm ready to click Next. The system imports the files and lists requests and their corresponding responses in the Sample Files table. In the Collect Transactions step, your uploaded request and response files have been paired, and each is now represented by a single operation. As you select each operation, you'll note that you can see the default request and response for each. If you like, you can also manually add transactions from this field, and you can modify the requests and responses as they are listed here. It's also worth noting that at any point in this process, you can toggle into Advanced mode to get additional options. For example, in this page, you can now remove operations, and you can see the metadata for each operation. Let's accept what we have here and click Next. In the Configure step, you can see the transport protocol at the top right, and below that, you can see the data protocol or protocols that were automatically accepted. DevTest automatically examines the data to determine what protocols are needed, but you can also change these. As you can see, the JSON data protocol was automatically selected on the request side. In the case of our example, we know that the service also includes REST calls. Here is how we add the REST data protocol. Select REST from the list of available protocols and move it over to the selected column. And then click Next. The Configure DPH step lets you modify the configuration of selected data protocols. Note the JSON protocol listed here on the left. While there's no configuration for that, we can examine other protocols like REST, where we can see that the operation identification rules are available to modify. We can make any necessary changes there. We can remove one or more of these rules and increase or decrease their processing order from top to bottom. For our example, there's really nothing I need to change here, so we're going to move on and accept the default settings and click Save All, then click Next. And in the final step, we're prompted to save this new virtual service. We can click Save and Close to come back to it later, or we could click Save and Deploy Virtual Service at the same time. We can also save it and then go into Edit Virtual Service mode. In this case, we'll choose Save and Close. This way we can show you how to navigate to your virtual service later. Here you can also select the project you want to save to, and this field defaults to your current project. Here you can choose whether to allow duplicate-specific transactions, meaning you can have multiple responses for a single request. Here you also have the ability to automatically create baseline tests, which are headless tests that you can use to test against the virtual service and validate it. Once more, if you switch to advanced mode, you can see there are some additional options that show up here as well. For our example, we'll go ahead and click Finish. You can see from the confirmation the service was successfully created. Let's review the new service. To do that, we'll go to Virtual Services on the left and then Manage Virtual Services. In our example system, we have only 2 services, but if you have a large list of services, you can filter and sort by any of these columns. For my example here, I'll select Bank, but you could also click Edit. And here you see a view similar to what we saw during creation. The operations are on the left. As you click an operation, you can see the request and response information on the right. You also have an advanced mode on this screen as well. And now we can see the arguments, attributes, and metadata. One of the nice things about a virtual service is that you can make changes to the service that test out specific scenarios without touching the actual live system. This means that you can change any of this information, redeploy your virtual service, and see how those changes impact your application. Speaking of deploying, let's take a look at that as well. To do that, let's go back to the Manage Virtual Services screen. Click this icon here to select Deploy. Here we can configure deployment options. Because we only have one VSC server in this example, I don't need to select it from the dropdown. If you do, you will. The other options on this screen include a group tag to make it easier to filter in your list of services. That way you can monitor multiple virtual services together. And the Think Timescale percentage defines the response time behavior for the service. We'll leave it at 100% for this example, but you can modify this if you want to introduce a delay to mimic the behavior of your application. As that's the last configuration piece we need for our example, we'll click Deploy so you can see it deployed successfully. Now we go to Virtual Services on the left and then Monitor Virtual Services. For our example, you can see here that the virtual service is live and running and available. You can direct any traffic here that you want to send to the service instead of to your live system. And that's how you create a virtual service from request and response pairs. I hope you found this video useful, and thank you for viewing it. This concludes creating a virtual service from RR pairs.